Psalm 34:18. God is close to the brokenhearted. Have you ever wondered why the nights feel longer when your heart is broken? Why silence seems heavier? Why even breathing feels like a task that your soul no longer has strength to complete? There is a moment in every person's life when the weight of pain becomes almost unbearable, a moment when the world keeps moving, but you remain still, frozen between what hurt you and what you fear might never heal. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. Maybe you pressed play because something inside you whispered, "I can't carry this alone anymore." Tonight, I want you to hear this slowly, deeply, as if your soul itself needed to feel the words from the inside out. You are not abandoned. You are not unnoticed. You are not unseen, and your pain is not invisible to heaven. There is a tenderness in God that only broken hearts get to experience, a nearness that only those who have cried quietly in the dark ever come to know. Pain has a strange way of stripping away the noise of life. And suddenly, the only voice you can still hear is the voice of the one who has been with you all along. Psalm 34:18 was not written for the strong, it was written for the shattered, for those who tried to hold everything together, but their hands couldn't carry the pieces anymore. It was written for the ones whose chest aches like something has been torn open inside them. It was written for the forgotten, the disappointed, the betrayed, the tired, the ones who prayed but didn't receive the answer they hoped for, the ones who loved deeply, only to lose more than they ever imagined. Maybe you've been telling yourself that you should be over it by now, that you should be stronger, that you should have moved on. But hear me, healing is not a race. God is not rushing you. He is not standing over you demanding progress. He is sitting beside you in the stillness, in the confusion, in the tears you haven't told anyone about. He is present in the silent moments that people overlook, in the quiet hours when your mind replays everything that broke you. The brokenhearted are not weak. They are sacred. They are held in a place of divine protection that those who have never tasted deep pain cannot understand. God does not stand far away waiting for you to figure things out. He draws closer, closer than the memories that haunt you, closer than the disappointment that tries to swallow you, closer than the questions you don't have answers for. And maybe the reason you are hearing this right now and at this very moment is because God wanted to interrupt the cycle of thoughts that have been tormenting you. He wanted to breathe something different into your spirit. He wanted you to know that the ache inside your chest is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign of His nearness. The breaking of your heart didn't push Him away. It attracted Him. It pulled heaven into the room with you. Take a slow breath, because this is not just another message. This is an encounter. This is the beginning of something new inside you. Your heart may be in pieces, but you are not alone among the ruins. God is closer than the pain, closer than the fear, closer than the memory of what hurt you. And before this journey ends, you will feel Him, you will sense Him, and you will rise again. There comes a moment after heartbreak when the world becomes strangely quiet, not peaceful, but empty. It's the kind of silence that echoes, the kind of silence that reminds you something inside you has changed forever. Maybe you've tried to explain this feeling to others, but they didn't truly understand. They gave you advice, they told you to stay strong, to move forward, to let it go, but none of those words touched the wound that sits behind your ribs. Because some pain doesn't just sit in the mind, it settles in the soul. And when the soul aches, logic doesn't fix it, time doesn't erase it, and distractions only delay it. A broken heart is not simply emotional pain, it is spiritual pain. It's the ripping of something that once felt whole. It's the collapse of something you trusted. It's the shock of realizing that what you held tightly suddenly slipped through your fingers. Heartbreak is not weakness, It is the moment your humanity is exposed. It is the moment you discover how fragile hope can feel. But listen to this carefully, because it might be the first time someone has ever said it to you. God is not disappointed with your sadness. He is not impatient with your tears. He is not telling you to just get over it. No, He sits with you, not above you, not far from you. He sits with you, like a father kneeling to meet his child eye to eye, like a healer touching a wound that no one else can see. And maybe you felt like your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, like you've been talking to the wind. But what if, just for a moment, you could perceive the truth? What if you understood that every sigh, every whisper, every word you didn't even know how to say, all of it reached Him? Heaven is not deaf to the sound of a breaking heart. In fact, broken hearts make a sound that heaven rushes toward. Psalm 34:18 doesn't say God notices the brokenhearted. It says He is close. There's a difference. Not aware. Close, not observing. Close, not comforting from a distance. Close. And proximity is intentional. It means God stepped toward you in the very moment others stepped away. It means the pain you thought would isolate you actually invited the presence of the one who will never leave you. You see, heartbreak creates a doorway that feels like loss, but in reality it opens the deepest kind of encounter. When your heart breaks, a sacred crack forms, a space wide enough for God's presence to enter in ways you never experienced before. He doesn't demand your composure. He doesn't require your strength. He only asks for your honesty. He only wants the truth of where you are and what you feel, even the parts you've been hiding from yourself. And maybe that's why you are here. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but by divine timing. Because God knew there was a moment coming when the ache inside you would grow louder than the noise around you. He knew you would need someone to speak directly to the place where you've been hurting. He knew you would need a voice that didn't judge you, a voice that didn't rush you, a voice that didn't try to fix you, but instead reminded you of something you forgot. Your heart may be broken, but you are not broken. Your spirit may be tired, but you are not defeated. Your tears may be falling, but you are not abandoned. God is closer than your pain. And tonight, that nearness becomes the beginning of your healing. There is a moment right after the heart shatters when the world loses its color. Food tastes different, music feels empty. Even the things you once loved seem distant, like you're watching your own life through a window you can't open. It's as if your soul has stepped outside of your body and is waiting for something to make sense again. And this waiting, this silent, agonizing pause, becomes the place where questions start to rise. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Where was God when everything fell apart? You ask these questions not because you lack faith, but because the pain is loud, because heartbreak challenges every belief you thought was unshakable, because suffering has a way of making even the strongest person feel small. And maybe you've carried these questions quietly, afraid to speak them out loud, afraid they might reveal some flaw in your faith. But hear this with the tenderness it deserves. God is not intimidated by your questions. He is not offended. He is not distant. He is not fragile. Your doubt does not push Him away. It pulls Him closer. Your confusion does not disqualify you. It invites His presence. Your tears do not weaken your prayers, they strengthen them. God never asked you to pretend you are okay. He never asked you to suppress the pain. He never asked you to hide the wound. In fact, the moment you finally admit, God, this hurts more than I can bear, is the moment heaven bends low to lift you. Sometimes God allows your heart to break, not to destroy you, but to remove what was never meant to stay, to protect you from something you didn't see, to redirect you to something you never expected. In the moment, it feels cruel. It feels unfair. It feels like abandonment. But the truth is far more tender. God is too faithful to let you build your future on something that would eventually collapse. And so he steps in, gently but firmly, even when his intervention feels like loss. You may not see it now, but one day you will realize that closed door saved you, that separation freed you, that ending protected you, that heartbreak redirected you. But right now, in the middle of it, all you feel is the ache. And that ache is real. It's raw. It's heavy. So heavy you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. And that is exactly why Psalm 34:18 exists. Not as a poetic verse to memorize, but as a lifeline, a promise, a declaration carved into Scripture for moments like this. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Not he visits sometimes, not he comforts from afar, but he is close, closer than your fear, closer than your memories, closer than the thoughts that steal your sleep. And maybe you don't feel him right now. Maybe all you feel is emptiness, but listen carefully. God's closeness is not measured by emotion, it is measured by truth. And the truth is this: you are not walking through this valley alone. You are not forgotten in the shadows. You are not lost in the silence. God has come near, nearer than the breath in your lungs, and even if you cannot sense him yet, he is already working in the depth of your soul. Tonight, your healing begins exactly here, in your honesty, in your vulnerability, in your surrender, in your willingness to say, God, I can't carry this anymore. Because when your strength ends, his strength begins. There is a place deep inside you where the pain of this season settled. A place you don't talk about, a place you rarely visit even in your own thoughts. It's where the memories live, the ones that still sting, the ones that replay without warning, the ones that make your chest tighten when you least expect it. Heartbreak doesn't simply leave a mark, it creates an echo. And that echo can follow you everywhere, into conversations, into quiet moments, into sleepless nights, into the parts of your life that used to feel safe. You've tried to keep going, to stay focused, to convince yourself that you're fine. But there are moments, sudden quiet moments, when everything inside you collapses at once. You try to breathe, but the breath feels heavy. You try to pray, but the words don't come out. You try to move forward, but your heart stays stuck in the place where it was broken. And you wonder, will this feeling ever go away? Will I ever be myself again? Let me tell you something you may not have realized yet. Feeling this deeply is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of love. It is a sign that your heart has the capacity to care, to hope, to believe, even after disappointment. Pain means your heart was engaged. Pain means you risked something. Pain means you loved. And God sees that. He honors that, because the heart that breaks is the same heart he restores. And restoration, true restoration, doesn't begin with forgetting. It begins with God stepping into the room of your pain and making his presence undeniable. The same God who shaped galaxies and set oceans into place bends low to comfort you, not from heaven's distance, but from the nearness of a whisper. You may feel like the world is far away from you, but God has never been closer. Sometimes, he allows your heart to reach the point of breaking because that is where you finally stop running. You stop pretending, you stop controlling. And for the first time in a long time, you become still enough to hear him. Heartbreak has a way of silencing every voice except the one that matters most. And in that silence, God speaks in ways you cannot miss. He speaks through the ache that reminds you there's more ahead. He speaks through the tears that wash away what you were never meant to carry. He speaks through the emptiness that creates space for him to fill. He speaks through the breaking, because that's where new beginnings are born. Psalm 34:18 is not just comfort, It is revelation. It reveals where God positions himself when your world collapses. Close, not above your pain, not beyond your reach, but right beside you, with a love that refuses to leave, a strength that refuses to fail, and a tenderness that refuses to rush your healing. And maybe you've been expecting God to take the pain away instantly, to remove every memory, to erase every trace of what happened. But healing doesn't always begin with removal. It begins with presence. God's presence. And that presence is here, surrounding you, lifting you, holding you even when you feel like you're falling apart. There is a soft, holy work happening inside you right now. You may not see it, not yet. But something in your atmosphere is shifting. God is taking the pieces you thought were lost forever, and He is preparing to rebuild something stronger, deeper, purer than what you had before. Not a restoration of the past, but the birth of something entirely new. And it starts here in this very moment, with this truth settling into the deepest part of your soul. God is close, closer than the pain, closer than the fear, closer than the memory of what broke you. There is a part of heartbreak that nobody talks about, the exhaustion that settles into your soul. It's not just emotional tiredness, it's deeper. It's the kind of exhaustion that makes you feel like even existing is heavy. You wake up tired. You think tired. You love tired. You pray tired. And you wonder if anyone sees this quiet battle taking place inside you. You smile for others, but your heart knows the truth. You're still trying to find the pieces of who you were before everything broke. But hear me. God sees this version of you. Not the strong version you show the world, not the held-together version you force yourself to be. He sees the tired version, the trembling version, the version that whispers prayers in the dark that no one else hears, the version that wipes away tears quickly so no one notices, the version that pretends to be fine because you don't want to burden anyone. And when He sees you like that, He doesn't look away. He draws near. You think you've been holding yourself together, but the truth is God has been holding you. Every day you felt like you survived on your own strength. You didn't. Heaven carried you. Grace covered you. The Holy Spirit breathed for you when your lungs felt heavy. You are not standing because you are strong. You are standing because God refused to let you fall. And even now, while you listen to this, something inside you is shifting, not because these words are powerful, but because God is speaking through them. He is touching the very place where you've been hurting, the place you've tried to hide, the place you hoped would heal quickly but hasn't, and instead of rushing your process, He sits with you in it. Because divine healing doesn't come through speed, it comes through presence. This is why Psalm 34:18 is so important. It is not a verse that promises instant relief. It is a verse that guarantees companionship. God does not always remove the pain immediately, but He refuses to let you face it alone. And there is something sacred in that, something holy about being held by the one who knows every crack in your heart and still calls you valuable. Think about this. Every tear you've cried has been counted. Not one fell unnoticed. Heaven stores them the way a loving father stores the treasures of his child. To you, they look like pain. To Him, they look like seeds. Seeds of the healing that is coming. Seeds of the strength being formed in you. Seeds of the future He is preparing. A future where the pain you feel now becomes the testimony that lifts someone else. But before the testimony comes the turning point, and you are standing in it right now. Not the turning point where everything suddenly becomes perfect, but the turning point where you realize you are not alone in your brokenness. God has stepped into your pain with you. He is breathing into the cracks of your heart. He is sitting in the shadows, waiting for you to realize that even here, you are loved. Even here, you matter. Even here, He has not abandoned you. There is a gentle truth rising inside your soul, almost like a whisper. You will not stay broken. This is not the end of your story. Your spirit may feel crushed, but crushed things grow. Crushed soil grows seeds. Crushed spices release fragrance. Crushed olives produce oil. And your crushing will produce something sacred, something anointed, something powerful in your future. God is close, closer than you've ever felt him, and the healing you thought would never come has already begun. There is something almost invisible that begins to happen after heartbreak, a quiet rebuilding that starts long before you notice it. At first, you feel like everything inside you is in ruins. Your confidence feels cracked, your hope feels thin, your ability to trust feels fragile, and you wonder if you will ever stand again without shaking. But even while you're asking those questions, God is already at work, laying foundations deep beneath the surface. Healing rarely begins with a loud moment. It begins in the unseen, in the moments when you're too tired to pray, yet your spirit whispers, "God, stay close." In the moments when you feel like giving up, but something inside you keeps going anyway. In the moments when you think you're falling apart, but heaven is actually holding the pieces together. There is a holy work happening inside you that your emotions cannot perceive yet. And this is where many people misunderstand heartbreak. They think God heals by removing the pain instantly. But God heals by entering the pain, by stepping into the room of your wounds and sitting with you long enough for the healing to become real, deep, permanent. Healing that comes from avoidance is temporary, but healing that comes from God's presence changes you forever. Maybe you've noticed yourself questioning things more, feeling things more deeply, reflecting on your life with a sensitivity you didn't have before. That is not emotional instability. That is spiritual awakening. Heartbreak breaks the illusion that you can control everything and reveals the truth that you were never meant to carry your life alone. And in that revelation, something sacred begins to grow, dependence on God. The brokenhearted become the ones who hear God most clearly, not because they are strong, but because their hearts are open. Pain breaks us open, but God fills the open places with wisdom, with clarity, with truth, with direction. You may feel empty, but God fills emptiness before he fills anything else. Think of this. The ground breaks before a seed grows. The sky breaks before rain falls. The night breaks before morning comes. Breaking is the beginning, not the end. And your breaking, as painful as it was, is opening the door for something you cannot even imagine yet. Something bigger than what you lost. Something deeper than what was taken. Something stronger than what fell apart. And in this process, God does something extraordinary. He begins to redefine your identity, not based on who left, not based on what ended, not based on what hurt you, but based on who stayed, him. Pain tries to convince you that you are unworthy, forgotten, or unloved, but God's presence in your pain silently declares the opposite. You are cherished, protected, chosen, and understood. You are not the person you were before heartbreak, and that is not a bad thing. You are becoming someone wiser, someone more compassionate, someone who sees life with new eyes, someone who knows God not just as a savior, but as a companion in the darkest moments. And even if the healing feels slow, it is real. Even if you still feel fragile, you are growing. Even if the memories still sting, they no longer own you. God is teaching your heart to beat again, slowly, steadily, in rhythm with his presence. And there will come a day, sooner than you think, when you will look back and say, "I survived something that once felt impossible." Not because you were strong, but because God was close, closer than the pain, closer than the breaking, closer than the silence. This is the sacred work of Psalm 34:18 unfolding inside you. The closeness of God, turning wounds into wisdom, The presence of God turning ashes into beginnings. The love of God turning brokenness into strength. There is a stage in healing that feels almost confusing. You're not as broken as before, but you're not fully whole yet. You have moments of strength, glimpses of clarity, sudden waves of peace, and then there are days when the pain returns without warning, like a shadow crossing the light. And you wonder, why am I still feeling this? I thought I was getting better. But what you don't realize is this: healing is not a straight line. It is a sacred spiral, pulling you upward even when it feels like you're circling familiar emotions. Every step forward counts, even the ones that feel small. Even the ones that feel like you're standing still. Even the ones that feel like you're taking 2 steps back. Because the very fact that you can feel again means your heart is coming back to life. And this part of your journey, this fragile in-between place, is where God does his deepest work. Not when you are strong, not when you are brave, but when you are unsure, when you're learning to breathe again, when you're learning to trust again, when you're learning to exist without the weight crushing your chest. God is not waiting for you at the end of your healing. He is walking through it with you. Maybe you've had moments lately where something small brought you hope. A sunrise, a song, a quiet moment, a sudden sense of peace. Those moments are not random. They are hints, signals, gentle reminders from heaven that the darkness is losing its power. Every small flicker of hope is a promise in motion, a sign that the God who is close to the brokenhearted is restoring you piece by piece. And perhaps without even noticing, you've started to ask new questions, not the ones born out of pain, but the ones born out of possibility. What if I heal? What if God really is rebuilding me? What if something better is ahead? These questions are evidence that your heart is waking up. You're beginning to see beyond the wound. You're beginning to imagine a future again. And this is where the presence of God becomes even more powerful, because he doesn't just sit with you in the brokenness, he guides you toward purpose. Pain has refined you. Loss has sharpened your vision. Silence has deepened your discernment. Heartbreak has expanded your capacity to love, to empathize, to understand. And God is going to use every part of this. Nothing is wasted. Not one tear, not one prayer, not one lonely night. What felt like the end of your story is becoming the opening chapter of something sacred, a chapter written not out of loss, but out of resilience. A chapter marked not by abandonment, but by God's nearness. There is something inside you that pain could not destroy. A spark, a strength, a softness, a depth. Heartbreak did not end you, it revealed you. It revealed the warrior hidden within your soul, the survivor you didn't know you were, the child of God who learned to breathe in the dark and walk through storms without letting them break your spirit completely. And now, slowly, God is leading you forward. He is teaching your heart how to trust again, not because the world is safe, but because he is faithful. He is showing you that your story is not over, that you will love again, smile again, live again, not as the person you were before, but as the stronger, deeper, wiser version of yourself. This in-between season may feel uncertain, but it is holy ground, the place where God whispers, I am not done with you. I am closer than ever. Keep walking. I am leading you. There comes a moment in every healing journey when you start to sense something shifting inside you. It's subtle at first, almost imperceptible. A lightness in the chest that wasn't there before. A thought that doesn't hurt the way it used to. A morning when you wake up and realize the heaviness didn't greet you the moment you opened your eyes. These moments feel small, but they are sacred. Because they are signs that God is rebuilding you from the inside out. What you may not realize is that healing doesn't begin when the pain disappears. Healing begins the moment God enters the pain. And he has been here from the very beginning. When you cried alone, He was there. When you didn't feel strong enough to face the day, He carried you. When you questioned your worth, He whispered truth. When you thought you had nothing left, He held the little that remained and began His work. But now, the healing is becoming visible. You are starting to breathe in a new way. Not just surviving breath, but hopeful breath. You are beginning to feel a quiet strength rising where the wound once was. And that strength is not your own. It is the strength God plants in those who have been broken and surrendered. Because that's the mystery of Psalm 34:18. God doesn't come close to the brokenhearted just to comfort them. He comes close to transform them. His nearness isn't passive, it's creative. It rebuilds, restores, reshapes, renews. The closeness of God is the environment where your future begins. And maybe you've noticed this too. You're thinking differently. You're seeing differently. Your heart, though scarred, is wiser. Your spirit is more aware. Your inner world is quieter, calmer, more aligned with something beyond yourself. This isn't coincidence. It's formation. God is forming something new inside you. He is teaching you to trust again, not in people first, but in Him. He is teaching you to love again, not recklessly, but from a healed place. He is teaching you to hope again, not with fear, but with expectation. Pain changed you, but God is changing you even more. And here's what you must understand. You are stepping into a season where the wounds of your past will become the wisdom of your future. The things that hurt you will become the things that shape you. The tears you cried will become the water that nourishes your growth. The silence you endured will become the sanctuary where you hear God most clearly. You are not just healing, you are awakening. You are rediscovering the parts of yourself that grief tried to bury, the strength you forgot you had, the sensitivity that is actually a gift, the compassion that only broken hearts carry, the resilience that deep pain activates. And slowly, beautifully, you are becoming someone new, someone who can look at what happened and say, "It didn't destroy me." Someone who can look in the mirror and see not brokenness but rebuilding. Someone who can walk into the future knowing that God Himself walked with you through the valley. And this is where another truth begins to rise inside you. The same God who stayed with you in the breaking will stay with you in the becoming. He is close, closer than yesterday, closer than the memories, closer than the fear that tries to pull you back. And with every step you take, His presence becomes more evident, like light slowly filling a room that once felt dark. This is not the end of your healing. This is the beginning of your rising. There comes a moment in your healing when God begins to reveal something you couldn't see before, that everything you walked through, every tear, every silent night, every question, every ache, has been shaping you for something greater. Not greater in the sense of achievement or recognition, but greater in depth, in purpose, in spiritual authority. Because the brokenhearted, the ones who survived the storm, carry a presence that cannot be faked, the presence of someone who met God in the dark. This is the point where you start to realize that pain was not your enemy. It was a turning point, a doorway, a divine interruption meant to shift the direction of your life. You thought you were breaking down, but heaven knew you were breaking open to compassion deeper than before, breaking open to dependence on God stronger than before, breaking open to an identity that is no longer built on people or circumstances, but on the truth of who God is to you, close, constant, and faithful. Look at yourself for a moment, not with the eyes of the past, but with the eyes of truth. You endured something that could have crushed you, but here you are, breathing, listening, learning, healing. Brokenness didn't get the final say. God did. And His nearness didn't just comfort you, it transformed you. You are not the same person who began this journey. You carry something now, something holy, something unmistakably touched by God. This is where many begin to feel something unexpected rise inside them. A quiet courage, not loud, not dramatic. A courage born from surviving what once felt impossible. A courage that whispers, "If God was with me there, He will be with me everywhere." That truth alone is enough to change the trajectory of your entire life. God is now preparing you for the part of the journey where heartbreak becomes purpose, where wounds become wisdom, where pain becomes power. Not power over others, but power over the darkness that once tried to consume you. You are being strengthened not just for yourself, but for someone else who will one day need the very comfort God poured into you. Because the healed carry healing, the restored carry restoration, the lifted carry lifting, and the brokenhearted who are held by God carry His presence wherever they go. Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but the people around you will. They will notice that your voice carries more clarity, your presence carries more peace, your words carry more weight, your spirit carries more calm. Pain deepened you, but God refined you. You are becoming the kind of person who steps into a room and changes the atmosphere, not because you try, but because you carry the evidence of someone who walked through the valley with God at their side. And here is something the enemy never wanted you to discover. Your heartbreak didn't weaken you, it awakened you. It awakened your discernment, it awakened your purpose, it awakened your connection with God. It awakened the parts of you that comfort never could. This is why Psalm 34:18 is more than a verse. It's a spiritual biography written into your story. You were brokenhearted, and God came close. You were crushed in spirit, and God began to save you. You felt abandoned, and God proved you were held. You felt lost, and God showed you the way. And now you are rising, not quickly, not carelessly, but intentionally, strongly, steadily, with a new identity God Himself is shaping. You are stepping into the season where the pain behind you becomes the purpose ahead of you, and the God who was close in your breaking will be even closer in your becoming. There is a moment, right before God lifts you, when everything becomes still, not empty, but still. When the pain you carried for so long suddenly feels lighter, when the questions that once tormented you grow quiet, when the wound that defined you no longer burns the way it did. This stillness isn't silence, it's transition. It's the holy pause between who you were and who you are becoming. And this very moment is where God begins to reveal the truth you were never meant to miss. Your brokenness was never the end. It was the beginning. You thought the story was closing, but heaven was only turning the page. You thought the night would last forever, but God was preparing the dawn. You thought being brokenhearted meant you had failed, but God knew it meant you were ready. Ready to see Him in a way you never had before. Ready to experience a depth of intimacy with Him that only pain can create. Ready to walk into a future that doesn't depend on the approval, presence, or promises of anyone but Him. And so, in this final stretch of your healing, something powerful begins to rise inside you. A strength that doesn't come from ignoring your wounds, but from surviving them. A confidence that doesn't come from pretending you're okay, but from knowing God carried you when you weren't. A faith that doesn't rely on circumstances, but on the undeniable truth that God was closest to you when you felt the furthest from yourself. This is where the transformation becomes undeniable. This is where your voice finds its authority again. This is where your heart remembers its purpose again. This is where your spirit begins to stretch, lift, breathe, expand. Because the God who comforted you in the valley is now preparing to lead you up the mountain. He is not only the God of broken hearts, He is the God of restored ones. And restoration is coming, not as a feeling but as a reality, not as a fleeting moment but as a new identity. In this moment, God begins to speak to you not only as someone who is hurting, but as someone who is rising. someone who will walk differently, someone who will see differently, someone who will love with wisdom, walk with purpose, and move with clarity. You are stepping into a season where God's nearness becomes your strength, not just your comfort. Imagine this: a heart once shattered, now steady; a soul once crushed, now lifted; a spirit once trembling, now unshakable. This is not poetic language. This is your future. Because nothing broken in God's hands stays broken. Nothing wounded in God's presence stays wounded. Nothing surrendered to God's love stays the same. And now, in this final moment of our journey together, I want you to breathe deeply, slowly. Let your shoulders drop. Let your chest soften. Let the truth settle into you like light filling a room. You survived what was meant to destroy you. You endured what once felt impossible. You were held when you thought you were alone, and you are rising right now in the presence of the God who never left your side. Your healing is not just near, your healing is here. And now let me pray over you, slowly, gently, as a blessing for the new chapter that begins tonight. Father, for every soul listening, for every heart that has carried breaking, for every spirit that has tasted sorrow, breathe peace now. Wrap them in your presence like a warm light. Remove the weight of yesterday and replace it with the strength of your promise. Heal every wound that still whispers pain. Restore every part of them that was torn. Lift their eyes, steady their steps, let them feel your closeness, not as theory, but as reality. Tonight, let healing begin. Let hope rise. Let your nearness become their strength. In Jesus' name, amen. And as this journey closes, remember, you are not at the end. This is the beginning of something new, something sacred, something beautiful. It is not the end. It is the beginning of your rising. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. Subscribe and activate the bell because the next word may change everything.